Thank you for joining us. I hope you get to have some relaxation. That's one of the reasons we do this. You know, all of you have been through so much in the last 10 months. And so we just want to give you a little time that you can come talk story with each other, because all of you and all of us have been through very similar things. Of course, everybody has a different story. That's one of the reasons we approach these cases this way. Everybody has their own individual story, and we want to present it that way at the right time when we get before the court or before some settlement fund. So I hope you enjoyed the afternoon. I hope your kids had a good time with the tram rides and the little activities we have back there. My cousin made this lay in 1 minute for me, so I got to wear it. She's a master lay maker, and she makes me a plumeria lay in 1 minute. Okay, all right. So let me. We're going to give you an update of what's going on. And Mikal Watts was all intent of being here, but apparently some big storm on the East Coast closed all the airports, and he could not get out of Puerto Rico. From Puerto Rico all the way here. That's what he does. The guy is nuts sometimes. You know, he will fly from Puerto Rico to Maui to do an event like this, and he'd be on a plane. I think his plane was for tonight at 10 o'clock. That's what he does, okay? So anyway, he's got the day off, and you're stuck with me. All right, so, okay. Let me start with this. You know, there is a lot going on. We've been in major litigation since last October. And I just want to highlight some of our battles that we've won to start off. You know, way back when, in September and October, fires in August, filed lawsuits in September. We've been demanding trial dates before the judge. You need trial dates to get any case to settle. If there's no trial date, putting pressure on the defense, they're not going to settle a case. So since last September, we've been asking for trial dates. Judge said a little too early. October, we asked for trial dates. Judge said, well, the defense is not ready, and I think it's a little early. But come November, just the last status conference before Thanksgiving, we had a whole hearing all afternoon, and at the end of the hearing, the judge said, you guys come back December 12th. I'm going to give you guys trial dates. And the defense flipped out. They said they complained, saying it's way too early. Judge was very firm. He said, you guys come back on the 12th. I am going to set some trials. And lo and behold, what happened is in the first week of December, the last 2 or 3 days before December 12th, Hawaiian Electric took all the cases and removed it to federal court. They had no good grounds to do that. They did it for the only reason to delay these actions, so that the victims of the case could not get compensation on a timely manner. It was just a delay tactic. So we won that first battle of getting the trial dates, but then they circumvented it by taking it to federal court. So then through December, January, and February, we're fighting in federal court to get the cases back to the state court. Please understand, we could have fought the cases in federal court, but it was already on a trial track in the state court. It would be faster in the state court. So we fought them in the federal court, and by the first month of March, Judge Otake issued an order sending it all back to the state court, ruling that they were wrong in the first place and they had no legal basis to take it to the federal court in the first place. So the point I want you to understand, we won the issue of getting trial dates. We won the issue in federal court to bring it back to the state court. So since March, we've been fighting in the state court. And again, the defense has been fighting every step of the way to conceal information, to hide stuff from us. You may have noticed the state came out with their report about the fire through the Attorney General's office. And in that report, they relied primarily on the Research Safety Fire Institute. They came down with about 50 people, interviewed hundreds of fire victims and witnesses, and that's all part of the state report. So we issued a discovery request to get those records. The state of Hawaii literally objected. They refused to give us those records that they, in fact, relied upon through the State Attorney General's office. So we took them back before the court on a motion to compel that information. We won that also. The judge ruled very clearly. Those records are discoverable, and the plaintiffs, all of you and all the attorneys, were entitled to that stuff. So the judge has ordered that, and now we're getting all those records. Right after the state did that, we issued something called a 30B6 deposition on Hawaiian Electric, which by the rules of court requires them to designate someone to testify on their behalf. And it was a very simple designation. Tell us about the origin and the ignition of the fire. Isn't that important? It's as simple as it can be. Hawaiian Electric refused to do it. They said, we're not going to designate nobody, and we're not showing up at your deposition. So we took it back before the judge. I took that motion. I filed that motion. And after a hearing probably a month and a half ago, judge ruled very clearly, you guys got to designate a witness, and you better produce them for this deposition. So we won that battle also. So that deposition is going to happen in the first and second week of July, forcing Hawaiian Electric to tell us exactly what they know about the ignition of the fire. Quite frankly, we already know that. Okay, I just need the witness to confirm it. Just last week, in fact, just this past week, we issued a request to inspect the property of the Bishop Estate because the fire turned from a little grass fire into a river of fire in their gully on their property. That's the fire that could not be controlled after 2:45 in the afternoon. Very simple request. They're obligated to do stuff like this. Let us on the property so we can inspect it. We have an expert that's going to be there tomorrow morning. Bishop Estate refused to grant us permission to go on their property. So we had to ask for an emergency hearing last Friday. We argued that all Friday morning. My crews did a wonderful job, and the judge ordered them to give us access. He ordered them to be there tomorrow morning. Our expert is going to be there, and everybody's going to be out on the property. So the point I want everybody to see is that, one, the defense has been stalling this thing, delaying this thing. On the other hand, we have been winning every one of these battles. Every single one, we have won those little battles. And I'm very confident we're going to win the war in the end. Okay? Yeah. Thank you, Gary. That's my biggest fan. Okay. So Doug and I will go through this slideshow here, just bringing you up to a little more up to date. This was, well, did you put this together? Okay, Doug put it together. Maybe he should do it. But anyway, I hate this thing. There we go. What we're going to cover tonight is a litigation update. That's a little bit of what I just did. Anatomy of a tort. That's what your claims are. It's a negligence claim against Hawaiian Electric. It's a negligence claim against the state of Hawaii, Bishop Estate, as well as another department of the state, as well as Spectrum and Charter and Hawaiian Telcom. And then Doug's going to take over on the case management. This is the part about building up your claim, making sure we know exactly what you lost. And Doug and his team are the experts in that. Okay, and then I'm going to tell you about what happens if this case settles. There's something called the special proceeding. The special proceeding was a type of lawsuit that we created so that all the plaintiffs, not just ours, but all the cases from all the different attorneys are involved in one proceeding so that we can combine everything and we don't have to do things over and over and over again for each separate person. It's really helped in getting the cases moving forward. Okay, the special proceeding is in Judge Cahill's courtroom. We have a monthly status conference on the first week of the month, every single month. The judge would then issue case management orders. At the very beginning of the case, Judge Cahill called me and said, hey, I understand you're going to take a bunch of these cases. I said, yes, I am. And he said, there's going to be a couple hundred lawyers involved. I said, you're probably correct. And his first words to me was, I'm not allowing 200 lawyers in my courtroom to talk at the same time. Neither would I. okay? And I said, so what are you saying, Judge? He said, you guys got to come up with a protocol, an organization where there be liaison counsels, attorneys that represent the whole group, and maybe a handful of you, 3 or 4 of you, 5 maybe, and you guys speak on behalf of all the plaintiffs, and you come to court and you address the court and you take back the orders to everybody else. So we did that. It took about 2 weeks for all the plaintiffs to get together, and we finally came up with a liaison committee. I am on the liaison committee. I am one of the 4 that goes to court to address the judge on all the issues. So we have these teams created among all the plaintiffs' lawyers. I'm on the liaison committee, which talks to the court. Mikal Watts is on the steering committee, which organizes and strategizes the whole case for everybody. Mikal is also on the settlement committee, which is probably the most important committee when we get to the end. So the point I want you to get is we are on every major committee in this whole litigation. Case management, discovery of all cases. There's experts. Let me talk about experts just for a second, because there are at least 10 to 15 experts involved in a case. I can't recite them all. I should have brought the list for you. I meant to do that. I forgot. On the liability side, we have electrical engineers dealing with the electrical lines and the conductors, telling us exactly what happened with the electrical current on that day. It's very clear. Hawaiian Electric power lines broke, fell into the dry grass below pole 25 and 24. The really, really sad thing is those lines broke as early as 3:15 in the morning. They did not start the fire initially. And that is the saddest thing in this whole case, because usually when they break, there's going to be an arc. There's going to be some electricity, maybe a small explosion. And that did indeed occur. We have a witness who said, roughly 3:15, I saw something blow up over there. But the wires went down on the ground and they did not cause the fire. Had nothing changed, this fire would never have occurred. Never have occurred. Unfortunately, at about 6 a.m. in the morning, Hawaiian Electric re-energized those lines, put the power back in those lines while they're sitting in the dry grass. That should never have happened, okay? And that's what started the fire. All right, so we have experts who have documented all of this. We have videos that documents the beginning of the fire. We have admissions from Hawaiian Electric through their congressional testimony admitting that their lines broke, their lines started the fire. Okay. There's certain information I can't give you because of certain protective orders, so I got to be a little bit careful here. The point I want to make, though, we have all the evidence we need and even more against Hawaiian Electric. They are a dead duck in the case, okay? So we have the electrical experts. We have a fire experts. Mike Schultz is one of the best. Well, he is the best in the nation, if not the world. He has worked every major fire in the nation in our nation, including Hawaii, different fires in Hawaii. Mike has been working on this case from pretty much the first weekend, I think. When Doug came over to see me with Michael, we got Mike Schultz on the case, and he was working on it by Monday, the Monday after the fire. We have a fire expert, we have a fire progression expert, we have land management experts who tell us what Bishop Estate and the state of Hawaii did wrong in the management of their lands. It's very clear they had no real vegetation management. A fire takes 3 things. It takes an ignition source. That's the Hawaiian Electric power line starting the fire. It takes fuel to continue the fire, and that's the state of Hawaii and Bishop Estate lands that contributed to all the fuel keeping the fire going. And of course, you need oxygen, but God gives us that, okay? So the state of Hawaii and the Bishop Estate are on the hook because of their land management negligence. It is very clear they did literally nothing since the 2018 fire. Many of you were involved in the 2018 fires where you had to be evacuated. Since then, very little, if anything, was done to prevent this from happening again. And that's the biggest point against the Bishop Estate and against the state of Hawaii. They had a dress rehearsal. They knew exactly what happened in 2018, and they did nothing to correct it. In fact, the little that they did actually made it worse. The Bishop Estate went in and tried to put in a fire break. First of all, it's only about 30 feet wide. That fire break of 30 feet does not do anything. Okay, that's literally a joke. The worst part is that they used this crushed rock instead of pavement or cement, which allowed the vegetation to grow through the rock. You could not see the fire break. The fire break was actually fuel for the fire because it was weeds about 3 to 4 feet high. And we have the witnesses who can verify that, saying there was a fire break for about a month, and after that, it was just weeds this high. Dry weeds that fueled the fire, that allowed the fire to get down into that gully. And the gully is owned by Bishop Estate. That gully was no longer just grasses, it's now dried trees and big brush and big tinder. And the fire, once it got in the gully, turned into a river of fire, probably 20 to 30 feet high, marching down toward Lahaina. And that's the part that was not controllable. I don't think the fire department had any chance once it got into that gully. From there, the embers lit up the houses on the side of Lahaina Road, and now you got lumber flying through the air with the wind like fireballs going all over town. At that point, it was not controllable. So the land management of the state of Hawaii, as well as the Bishop Estate, is one of the biggest culpable reasons this fire happened. So we have all of those expert witnesses lined up for that. In fact, what's today? Today's Sunday. I was just out there with one of our experts to appraise the loss of trees for everybody and damages losses this morning. Tomorrow we have an expert who specifically studies buffalo grass. Buffalo grass, I know, I used to say buffalo grass. It's not buffalo grass, it's buffalo grass. And it's buffalo grass is the worst grass for wildfires on earth. Just Google it. It'll say bad for fires. Okay, that's what it says. Buffalo grass was all over the state lands. And so we have located the primary or best buffalo grass expert probably in the nation. And he's flying in tonight. He should be here already. And we have him on the property tomorrow investigating all the buffalo grass. We also have a fire progression expert, tells us how fires will progress and move from one place to another, so he can explain how it went down, that river of fire, how it spread into Kuhua Camp and every place else. I mean, that's his job. Let's see, so we got buffalo grass, we got land management, we got the electrical engineers, we have the fire experts, and there's a bunch more on the liability side. We also have damages experts. Like I said, I was in Lahaina with the appraiser today. He actually goes around and tells us how much the trees are worth. If you had mature trees on your property, that is very valuable. You cannot go out and buy a 20-year-old tree. It's worth something. You spent 20 years growing that tree, okay? So the landscape expert is in Lahaina working on the cases set for trial right now. He's probably just about over. He may show up for dinner if he gets off in time, okay? So he's out there today. Buffalo grass guy is out there tomorrow. On Thursday, I take the soil expert and the toxicity and environmental pollution expert out to Lahaina. So the point I want you to get is things are rolling. And I'm here working with the experts preparing for the trial in November. And let me just jump to another part of the case. While I'm preparing for the trial by working all these experts up this next week, Mikal Watts and John Givens will be in Los Angeles attending a mediation hearing. The mediation hearing is an attempt to try to resolve all the cases on a global basis. We decided, because we have such a short deadlines for the trials that I'm going to stay here this week, and work up the cases for the trial. Michael and John will be in the mediation trying to get a global settlement, because Michael has been super, super critical in the backroom discussions trying to get money on the table. Whether that's going to be successful, I can't say one way or another, but I will say this. It is absolutely remarkable that we got the defendants to the mediation negotiation table 10 months after the fire. That's unheard of. I have never seen that happen before. In fact, a simple automobile accident, a simple rear end accident, I can't get the cases to mediation for 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. And for a case of this size to be in mediation right now, it is just absolutely remarkable. So it is a very, very good step. Whether we actually pull it off this week, I hope so. I hope I can call everybody on Friday saying a miracle has happened. But if it doesn't, it's still a major step. Sometimes it takes 1, 2, or 3 huge mediation hearings to get it all done. But we're at the first step, okay? All right, there's depositions going on this week. This past 2 weeks, we deposed Kamehameha Bishop Estate witnesses, Hawaiian Electric witnesses. We kind of took this next week off because of the mediation, so there's no depositions then. Starting July, whatever the Monday is, 30th is Sunday, July 1st, there are depositions set for Hawaiian Electric employees, Bishop Estate employees, State of Hawaii employees, almost every single day for the month of July, almost every day. And some days there's going to be 2 or 3 witnesses deposed. Because we have these trials in November, we got to get those depositions done. Okay. And that's what I was talking about. We have the first 4 cases set for November 18th. One case involves renters in a house in up on Kale Street in Kuhua Camp. Another one involves a death case. Just below that, another case involves 2 house losses. And the final case involves a person who went over the seawall and is extremely traumatized and pretty much disabled from the whole thing. So we're really gearing up for the individual trials on November 18th. I kind of explain what mediation is. Mediation is an attempt to get the parties to settle the case. And what we've managed to pull off is that there's 3 mediators. There's pictures of those guys, right? Are there pictures of the mediators? The next. Okay. This is Judge Meisinger. Rugged dude, huh? No, this guy is big time now. He has handled some of the biggest settlement funds in America's history. So he's been involved in multi-billion-dollar settlement funds. This is Keith Hunter. He's the top dog in Hawaii. I have been working with Keith for over 30 years. I have literally settled tens of millions of dollars of cases with Keith as a mediator. So we wanted the top dog in the nation. We wanted the top dog in Hawaii. And then there was one more. There's one more. Judge Kasinger is also in there. So mediation is a process where the last few weeks, all of the parties presented their side to the mediator and presented their side to the other parties so that we could show the defendants the evidence that we had. And they came back and showed the evidence that they had. And the interesting thing about it is all of the defendants agree that somebody's at fault. They only disagree about who is at fault. So when we claim Hawaiian Electric started the fire and they're at fault, the county of Maui agrees with that. They sued them also. The state of Hawaii filed cross claims against Hawaiian Electric. Well, we've sued the state of Hawaii. Hawaiian Electric has cross-claimed against the state of Hawaii. We claim that the Bishop Estate is partially responsible. Hawaiian Electric and the state has also cross-claimed against the Bishop Estate. And the point I want you to get is all of these defendants recognize that they're partially at fault. They're just fighting about who's more at fault and who should pay for the whole thing. And so the bottom line I want you to recognize is the claims that we've brought are actually very, very supported by the defendants themselves. They're just arguing about who should be more responsible than each other. Okay, so, and like I said, the mediation this week, by Thursday night, we're going to know whether it is possible to have a global settlement, which will be set up in a fund that all the claimants can then submit their claims. And Doug will go through the claim management process so we can submit your claims to that fund. That is the goal. I always take the approach of, if it happens, wonderful. My job is to get this case ready for trial. So I'm meeting with the experts and I'm going full forward, getting ready for trial. If Michael can pull this off this week, I'll kiss his feet. Okay? Okay, well, we covered that. We don't need this. A tort, that's what you have. Okay. And they did cause everything. I think I went through that. And so this is the case management part that Doug and his team really works up. So Doug, here you go.
Thank you, Jan. Hi, everybody. My name is Doug Boxer. I'm a lawyer from California. I've seen many of you here. I don't think I've ever spoken at one of these larger gatherings. I think we've spoken at something at our office. It's really good to see you. When you work with Mikal Watts, sometimes you got a curveball thrown at you, and that's what happened. I was not prepared to speak today, but on the plane over here today, I put together this presentation. So it's not quite as snazzy as Michael's presentations with videos and everything, but there's actually some really important information in here. And I want to talk a little bit about this. I do want to focus on one thing on this slide, though. All of you that are in here who are our clients, or if you haven't made up your mind yet, if you're going to come join us in this litigation, have suffered one of these, what we call injuries or damages, right? And you probably are all looking at that, figuring out, oh, I got that one, and I got that one, and I got that one, right? So it starts with real property damage. Real property is just the home you owned or the property you owned. It moves to personal property. That's everything that's in your house. If you picked up your house, turned it upside down, and shook it, whatever falls out is your personal property. Stuff that's not affixed to the walls or the ceiling or the floor is your personal property. All your clothes, all your silverware, your furniture, everything else, right? You have lost all of that if your home that you lived in was burned down. It doesn't matter if you rented your home or if you owned your home. So that's the second category of damages. The third category of damages is vehicles and boats and things like that. Many of you probably lost more than one vehicle. So we're going to want to get information about that. Personal injuries, including emotional distress. Many people were injured fleeing the fire, and they had to seek medical treatment. If you're one of those people, we're going to need you to go get medical records. You've all been harmed. Your emotional well-being has been harmed. Whether you believe it or not, I guarantee you all suffering from some form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of you saw doctors for that, some of you didn't. But we're going to want to know what you did to help yourself get better. We're also going to want to know if you were in the fire zone. Did you flee the fire? And that's really photos, timestamp photos or videos, or contemporaneous notes or texts that you sent to family members, things like that. Wrongful death, unfortunately 101 people lost their lives in this fire. We represent a number of them, and their families and their heirs have claims against the defendants for that. And then if you own a business which suffered loss either directly because the fire burned down your business or because there were no more customers, that's a business income loss claim. If you had a job, if you were a worker, if you were an employee at one of those businesses and you didn't work because of that, that's a personal income loss, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so this is broadly speaking the category of damages that we will seek on your behalf. And so it's really important for you to begin thinking about doing this. Many of you, how many of you have had a one-on-one meeting in our office or on the phone so far? Fantastic. We have a group of people that we've hired from here. We have our outreach people who you all know, our tremendous outreach people who are mostly sitting around the front. And then we have new people. Is Jan the only one here? And Linda's here, who's one of the people that's going to be working up your cases along. We have 2 people that are on the mainland who will do Zoom calls for you. And all those people roll up and work for this gentleman over here, Jordi Gonzalez, who's a fantastic human being and cares deeply about this. We've done this for over 17,000 people on the mainland. I'd like to say that this is the first time I've had to face a situation like what you're going through. Sadly, it's not. But that's why we're here, because I think we care, and we care deeply about what's happened to this community. And we will be here till you get what you're owed. And you have a tremendous partner in Jan, Naomi, and Mark, who are your local lawyers to help you. And I couldn't be happier and more proud to be associated with them. They are truly, truly wonderful people who get up every morning and try to figure out how they can help you recover from this. So, case management. It's a critically important aspect of what we do, right? Jan decided to skip over taking you to law school, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a provable injury or damages, we can't collect anything for you, right? So we have to be able to prove that. That's what the case management process is. Other than the lawyers going into the courtroom or Michael trying to settle this case, the most important thing we can do for you is to work up your claim with as many details as we can possibly get. As many. There is no details too small in this process. This will help you and help us try to recover every single thing that you deserve. I can't promise you're going to get, to say you're going to be made whole is probably a misnomer. That's what we call it in the law. We try to make you whole. We try to get you back to where you were the day before this fire. We understand that that's not going to happen. A piece of you was lost that day, and sadly, it probably will never come back. But what we can do is we can try to help you recover as best we can for that. Okay, that's why we do what we do. That's why we're engaged in this. And so we talked about the damage categories before. I won't go over those again, but you see them there. Business and income, business loss, personal income loss. All right, so how do we prove this up? Think about it. If you were sitting in the position of someone sitting across the table from you and they say, hey, you owe me $50, right? You'd say, well, prove it. Well, how are you going to do that, right? You're hopefully going to have paper or email or text or photographs. And this is all done within the context of us understanding completely that what you had to demonstrate all these things was burned up in the fire, right? So we do our best to help you reconstruct what was in your home, right? And for real property, there's plenty of records out there that we can get to prove that you own the piece of property. In terms of proving the damages, all we have to do is pull up Google Earth. We can figure that out, right? That's fairly easy. But insurance documents, receipts, if you have them, pictures of them. Same thing for personal property. Now this one, the personal property aspect of this, we'll get into in another slide, is very, very challenging, and we understand that. Your house was your castle. Everything that you probably had built up in your lives was in that house. Memories, pictures of your children, your wedding dress. And so this is going to be the hardest part of the process, but we are here to help you do that. And we have ways to help you remember these things, and we'll walk through that in a second. We want your medical records, as I said, any photos of your injury from the day of the fire and thereafter. Lars asked me before when he came in, he said, man, I am struggling to figure out how I can prove that pile of molten metal in front of my house was my mom. Do you mind if I share this story? It was my mom's silver set. He said, I don't have any receipts for it. I can't find photos. He said, can someone just give me a written statement? I said, yeah, we can do that. Someone who actually saw the silver set, someone who ate off the silver set, can take a sworn a sworn affidavit. Okay, so we can do things like that. And then for personal income and business loss, it's really important that you have tax records. If you unfortunately were an employee at a place, you got paid cash, it's really hard for us to prove that you got that. Okay. So how do we deal with personal property damages? We help you create a comprehensive inventory list. Now, let me just talk about why it's really important for you to create the list. And Jordy, if you have anything you want to add, please come up. So Jan talked a little bit about the fact that we might end up in this global settlement where every single person's claim is resolved in one fell swoop, right? And then the defendants will be putting money into a fund, and then that fund will be administered by a settlement administrator. And that settlement administrator will be reviewing your case file to figure how much you're owed. They will publish rules about how they are going to value everything. One of the rules they may publish, and this is what happened in California, is if the claimant or the client in your case doesn't have an itemized list of contents that they lost in their property, we are going to assume that they had X number of dollars per square foot worth of property in your house. In most cases, if not all cases, an inventory list is going to get you more than just going with their standard formula. That's why it's really important. I know it's hard. I sat across the table from lots of people who have to fill out that document, and it's emotional. But if someone could tell you, if you did a little bit of homework, you were going to generate thousands of dollars in return, I think hopefully you do your homework. That's what we're trying to help you do with these one-on-one meetings. We have a document, a template that will help jog your memory. We'll talk to you about how to figure out how to build out your inventory list. It involves putting yourself back in your house, which is very painful. But you start room by room. You just picture yourself, okay, that's the living room, the wall there, I had that painting, I had the couch there, I had the credenza over there, right? Then go into your kitchen, open up every drawer, and eventually you'll get it done. Oh, one thing. We love to use the blender example. I don't know if everyone has blenders, but there's a difference between a blender and a Vitamix, turns out, right? A blender you could get for $49, right? A Vitamix costs hundreds of dollars. So don't write blender if you had a Vitamix. I'm not telling you to make anything up. What I'm telling you is don't take the shortcut and say I had a blender. Say I had a Vitamix. Make sense? And that's like for everything. Don't just say I had a mattress if you had a really expensive mattress. Okay, so we do that. I've been through this. These are some tips. I've already told you, visualize yourself in the room, walk yourself through your house. Okay, this is another big question. How are they ever going to tell me how much my family heirlooms were worth, or exceptional value items, or collectibles? Well, there's a lot of things that have extraordinary value, but only to you, that don't have value out in the real world, right? Those are your memories. Those are cherished items. Those actually get lumped into your emotional distress component, right? But if you have something of extraordinary value, for example, a silver set, right? Or you purchased an antique or a piece of artwork, if it's an extraordinary value, you got to let us know. Sometimes we'll have to go hire someone, an expert, to value that item. And then we'll need a witness statement or a photo to verify that you owned it. We have a famous story of a guy in Paradise, California, who told us he had a 50-carat ruby or a 2-pound ruby in his safe. But when we asked him to show us a picture or find someone who could tell us it was in his safe, he couldn't do it. So we couldn't verify that, right? That's what they're going to do. They're going to require documentation. As I said before, please, if you suffer personal injury, we need your medical records. Start collecting that now. As Jan said, look, we're all knocking on wood and crossing our fingers and hope that Mikal Watts can do what Mikal Watts does, but there's no guarantee that we're going to end up having a global settlement, right? So let's get prepared just in case it does happen. For your emotional distress, the same thing. Write down what you've been doing to help yourself get better. Two aspects of your emotional damages. One I talked about before, whether or not you fled the fire. Many of you took photos or video as you were trying to get out of the zone of danger. Many of you texted your family members to tell them that you're on your way out and there's this terrible tragedy happening. Please get us copies of those things. The other thing is a little bit weird in the law. It's called nuisance. Basically, it means that you're suffering emotional damage because everything that you used to know about where you live is gone, right? You're living in a new place now. You don't get to go to the same dry cleaner. Your kids are at a different school maybe. That's called nuisance, and we want to know how your life has been altered, usually by you giving us statements of those kinds of things. Yeah? Okay. I took a couple of extra minutes to go through the income loss, only because people have lots of questions about them. I want to distinguish between business income loss and personal income loss. I kind of did that earlier, but just real quick. If you were an employee, you're going to make a personal income loss claim. If you owned a business, you're going to make a business income loss claim. And that includes your lost inventory. So if you had a t-shirt shop, or let's say you worked out of your house for maybe you have an Etsy account, right? You make these beautiful lays, and you lost your inventory, and maybe you lost some income as a result. We're going to want to know. Okay, and again, it's got to be W-2. Lost wages, anything covered by a W-2. All right, business income loss claim, we're going to need tax returns, profit and loss statements, things like that. If you had a business that it's hard to put a value on, again, we would hire an appraiser or an expert to give us their expert's opinion of value for your business. And then we would walk that into whomever is evaluating the claims. I'm going to skip over the same information. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Jan. Unless anyone has a question about the claims management process, I think we should do it now before you get into that, because they can get detailed. All right. I can't imagine I did that good of a job explaining it, but I'll be around afterwards, folks. Thank you for having me. I am honored to work on your behalf. So, Jan, come on.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know what Doug and his team does is super, super important. Okay, my job is to take this case into the courtroom and lay the accountability and responsibility on the right parties. And what Doug's job is to give me each and every one of your individual claims so that we know what we're asking for before the judge and before the jury. And I can't do it myself. Doug's team is super. Doug and Jordy here, they're the guys that can build up your claim, and I can take it into the courtroom. Okay? Now, a couple things before we close up. One, I see a few newer faces, so I just want to make clear what happened in the fire. Okay, I know I covered it from when the line broke, but the whole case literally starts at about 3 o'clock in the morning, way before the fire started. Somewhere after 3 o'clock in the morning, this pole designated as pole 7A toppled over. Okay, the fire started between pole 25 and 24. Those poles are along Lahaina Luna Road, right across the street from Lahaina Intermediate School, just below it a little bit. And so most of you know Lahaina Luna Road. That's where the wires broke. That's where the fire started. But the whole story starts a lot earlier, and this is super important. Pole 25 is connected to pole 7 that is across the street on the dirt road right below Lahaina Intermediate School. Pole 7A broke in half, almost perfectly in half, with the top portion tumbling over. And when that went down, it tugged on the lines. It broke the lines between 7A and 25, and it also caused the stress that broke the lines between 25 and 24. And those are the lines that ultimately were re-energized and started the fire at 6 o'clock. So the reason I want you to understand that is pole 7A is a critical factor in this case. When we first got on the case, everybody looked at 25 and 24. But one of my experts, the fire expert, actually came back and said, there's something about 7A that's not right. I said, what is it? He goes, I don't know. You got to go get a pole expert. Okay. So we got a pole expert. You see, Hawaiian Electric ran out there and literally fixed pole 7A. They removed the damaged pole and put in a new one within the first 72 hours. They yanked it out, hoping that nobody would notice. Okay, that's what really happened. Okay, but my expert came back saying, yeah, that's a new pole. Something happened at 7A. I don't know exactly what happened, but you guys got to go figure it out. So we got the pole experts, we got the records, and sure enough, we found pictures of 7A had broken in half, and they were trying to hide that. Okay, now, pole 7A is used by Spectrum and the cable company and Charter and Hawaiian Telcom. And Hawaiian Telcom is owned by Cincinnati Bell, which is a huge national company. It looks to us and our experts that the weight of the cable lines and the weight of the telephone lines is what caused that pole to snap in half. Okay, and that was improperly guided or improperly supported, and that the weight was too much for that pole. And I will tell you this, I have seen the photos, that pole was totally termite damaged. Okay, I think I've showed you guys that in previous meetings. So pole 7A is super critical to this case. It's not just Hawaiian Electric, and that's why we have sued Spectrum, the cable company, Hawaiian Telcom, Cincinnati Bell, and Charter, because they were using that pole. Pole 7A is the beginning of all the problems here. Pole 7A broke, it stressed the lines, it caused lines between 25 and 24 to break. That ended up causing the fire when it was re-energized. The fire then, which should have been just contained right there, it was the fuel by the state of Hawaii's grasses that they were warned about from the previous fire, allowed it to get to the gully, which Bishop Estate was warned about in the previous fire, which then turned into the river of fire. 20, 30 feet flames that wiped out everything you guys are here about. So I want you to see that this is a chain of events of negligence and gross negligence by a number of parties. It's not just one party at fault for everything. All of these guys played a major part in causing this fire and everything you're going through. So that's the whole picture in a nutshell. And let me close with this. It is actually at a stage that it is super important for you to sign up with attorneys and make your claims now through your attorney's office. Okay? The reason I'm up here, if you're not signed up with us, please do so. Okay? But if you got friends and family who are on the fence, tell them to go see an attorney. Hopefully it's us or anybody. And the reason this is important is if by chance Mikal Watts pulls off this global settlement, okay, if that happens, whether it be Thursday, the end of this week, or in the next hearing that could be the month after, what will happen is the claims that people already have made through their attorney's office, they will be solidified and we can make your individual claims to the fund. Sometimes these settlements result in a situation where if you are not signed up with an attorney and the fund is created, you will not be able to submit your individual claim. You will be relegated to the class action suit. There's somebody on Oahu that filed a class action suit. And in that situation, you will not get the opportunity for somebody like Jordy and Doug to build up your claim and say, this is my individual claim. You're going to be lumped in with everybody else, and I'm not certain how they're going to do it. They may just divide it equally for whatever amount is allocated to the class action people. That's why we take this very seriously as individual cases. Each and every one of you have your own special story, some of which are horrendous emotional distress, including wrongful death. And you should not be lumped in with a class action that everybody's treated the same way. Everybody has their own claim. So the point being, we don't know when that settlement fund or when that deadline occurs. And if it does occur, there could be a cutoff date. It's way better to be part of our team so we can make an individual claim for you or any other law office. But I don't like those guys. Come here. Okay, I'm just kidding. Yep. And so if you have friends and family who have not signed up yet, encourage them. Get off the fence. It is important to get on board now. We are doing another community event next Friday, coming Friday, in Napili at the Fond, and I'll be out there. I guess we'll all be out there. So come with them. Bring them to that event, and we can get them. And we will have a little more information as to what happened in the mediation. Because, like I said, if the mediation is successful, there's going to be a deadline to make claims on your individual basis. You won't lose out everything, but you'll be lumped in with the class action guys. Not a good position to be in, okay? All right, so I think I've covered everything we wanted to. I hope you guys had a good meal. Hope you had a time to relax on a Sunday afternoon, and thank you for coming. And I'll be out with the experts all week, and I can see you at Fond if you want to join us again next Friday. Okay, thank you for coming.